Okay, guys, before we get started, some official Vikings Territory business. About a week ago, I aired it out to you all that I was a little upset during free agency with our coverage this year. Literally everybody had sources this year. If they had a Twitter handle, they had sources. If they drove a cab, they had sources. If they started a podcast sometime within the last 12 years, they had sources. Everybody had sources except for our team at Vikings Territory, and that's a little embarrassing, quite frankly. So I wanted to rectify that by the time the draft rolled around, and I asked you all by tonight to have a source lined up, ready to go during draft season. Let's hear it. I want to know who you got. BJ, you're first.
I spoke with Brian Robinson's worm guy down at the local fish market here. So, you know, just his worm guy, the guy he buys his worm from.
Good, great. Brett, who you got?
Actually, yeah, mine's a little better than that, and I hadn't actually told you guys this yet. Kind of some breaking news here. But I was actually at Winter Park in the locker room conducting some interviews and whatnot, and sitting on the bench, I saw an application for offensive linemen. I guess things have gotten bad enough to where they're casting a wider net, so I figured, what the hell? You know, I have all the measurables, and it can't get much worse. So I filled one out, and I left Winter Park with a contract. So I'm on the team, and I don't mind feeding you guys bits of info here and there. I just need it to be kept anonymous. Yeah, no, I can be the source. Yeah, I just need it to be anonymous, you know, for obvious reasons.
You're our eyes and ears. That's awesome, man. Congrats on the contract.
No problem. Thank you.
Drew, what you got?
I can't top that, but I did make some calls, and I put all my student loan money towards buying a Minneapolis strip club. So, you know, I figured some of the players were going to hang out there a little bit, could catch some dirt on them. But obviously, I can't top being a player. But I think that's that's a close second, right?
No, that's good.
So you bought a strip club?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. That's dedication. Great work, man.
Now, is that federal loan money?
That's not important.
Yeah. Hey, so if you see my name in the news, it's because I'm the fall guy for every offensive starter now, and you can thank Chris Carter for that. So, looking forward to getting some dirt.
Well, those are important, man. Yeah, gang, I'm really happy with that. I don't know, Adam. I'm impressed. I mean, obviously, if you're kind of enforcing this, I'm assuming you have a big source yourself, or what?
Yeah.
Okay. I sure hope. Let's hear
it. Rick Spielman.
How did you swing that?
Shocker.
The GM?
Well, I mean, his name is Rick Spielman. This Rick Spielman is a dentist in Oklahoma, but, you know, whatever.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 6 of the Vikings Territory Roundtable. Thanks for taking time out of your night to join us here, and if you're watching, thanks for making us part of your Vikings programming. So, as usual, we have some of the best Vikings minds around here tonight. That includes you, BJ. Let's do we haven't done this. We missed it the past couple episodes. Let's do introductions real quick. Oh, BJ. I don't know what that was, but
yeah, I don't either. I was just kind of going with the flow here.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a ton of fun just hanging out last week. You know, we didn't kick anybody off. We just kind of sat around and chatted. So we're gonna kind of keep the same format this week. Plus, there's only a couple more weeks till the NFL draft, so I kind of figured some all hands on deck scenario. We should have kind of everyone here. Oh, we are missing Sam though, so Sam, hopefully he can join us next week. So obviously tonight we're going to focus on the draft, because like I said, we only have a couple more weeks left. More specifically, I thought it would be fun if we could kind of talk about everyone's hopes and fears as it relates to the draft this week. Maybe we could just have a conversation about what your dream draft would look like. So your ideal scenario for this year's draft, you would be over the moon about if it played out that way. And then we're also going to talk about what your worst nightmare would be, what you'd be pinching yourself if it played out that way. So once we do that, we're going to read off some tweets that we got from some readers, and we're just going to sit around and chat about it. So I figured we could start off actually with nightmares. I don't know, I was hoping that maybe if we start off with the negative, we could end on a positive note. So I'm going to start off with you, BJ. What would be the worst case scenario for you for this year's draft?
Okay, so the worst case scenario for me, and I think this is difficult to project given that they are drafting at 48, right? Since we can't really establish which players are going to be there, like with any certainty whatsoever, given that 47 picks are going to come off the board before they pick. My scenario for a quote nightmare scenario is fixating on a particular player and not being accepting of any other possibility. And this kind of specifically, I don't want to fixate on an offensive lineman because it's a need, right? I want to make sure that the Vikings are open to all of the opportunities that could present themselves at 48. We talked about Joe Mixon potentially falling. That's a guy that could look really good in purple if you're able to kind of get the bad out of your mind and trust the Vikings on their psychological evaluation of him. Malik McDowell, same type of thing, defensive tackle / defensive end from Michigan State. Those are two guys that would be huge additions to the Vikings at 48. Tremendous value there, assuming the Vikings can get away from the idea they need to draft an offensive lineman at 48. So to put it simply, the greatest nightmare for me is going out of their way to make sure that they select an offensive lineman at 48 when they could potentially get a much more talented player that had, for example, happened to fall because of one issue or another. The greatest examples of that being Mixon and McDowell.
You don't have to cater to Adam tonight. There's no voting going on, BJ. I mean, because basically you're saying best player available, right? And if anything strays from best player available, it's a nightmare scenario for you.
Clearly, no. I'm more saying that I don't want to lock in on offensive line because everyone perceives that as the greatest issue. My nightmare is drafting, Ethan Poshik from LSU, drafting him at 48 because he's the best remaining interior offensive lineman available, and when they could potentially get a very good cornerback, a very good linebacker, a very good defensive lineman, a very good running back, whatever it is. I just don't want to fixate on offensive linemen, and if they're getting poor value just to fill a need, that is a nightmare scenario for me. It's not just best player available. It's pigeonholing themselves.
Yeah. And that's, that kind of takes me back to my nightmares, or takes me to my nightmare scenario, which would be Willie Beavers 2.0, which you take a guy that I remember scratching my head, and I think everybody else was scratching their head when you take a guy like Willie Beavers when Billings from Baylor, BJ?
Yeah.
A DT from Baylor who was supposed to be a first-round pick is still on the board, and no one can explain why they took Willie Beavers. Willie Beavers ends up off the roster, back on the practice squad, then back to being an activated practice squad, then activated player.
Okay. You got it.
And you waste that pick. That's a fourth-round pick? And you got a guy that doesn't even play, that no one can explain why he was drafted. So it's kind of a vague...
We know why he was drafted.
You what?
We know why he was drafted.
Why was that?
He's got an awesome name. I think what you're saying is your nightmare scenario is that the Vikings select based purely on awesome names?
No, because there are some guys with awesome names that make it in the league. So
okay.
I would assume that some of the guys with good names are actually good players. I'm not trying to say Willie Beavers is a bad player, but it's kind of to BJ's point of pigeonholing guys because it's a need. So my concern is that they pigeonhole an offensive lineman that they like, even if there's a better cornerback or a better running back on the board. I think nightmare scenario 2 for me, just kind of building off of that, is wasting another pick on someone like Mobo, and that's kind of upset Drew, because Drew loves Mobo and thinks he's going to be the next Cordero Patterson, which would be kind of a bust anyway. I know I'm ripping you, Drew, but I know you like Mobo. You said Mobo was going to be a good receiver.
I said give him a chance. He's a freakish athlete. Have some patience, man.
I agree
right?
with Drew. Pump the brakes a little bit, man. He's the great German hope. Okay, give the guy a chance. He hasn't even 7th round pick. It's been a year.
6th round pick.
Treadwell didn't see the field last year either.
He caught a pass.
He made a
Treadwell had one more catch than Mobo last year.
So, Drew, what's your nightmare scenario then?
All right, it's not contradictory, but it's going to sound like it to kind of what you guys are saying. But I think not acquiring an offensive lineman at all is the nightmare scenario. The depth is just not there, and I think you have to get some sort of depth through the draft at some point. And I think ideally you get 2 players, but obviously again circumstances in each round will dictate that. But especially an interior lineman and kind of giving some competition to Jeremiah Searles at right guard is going to be something I personally would really hone in on. But I think not avoiding offensive line. It's kind of been Rick Spielman's the knock on him throughout his career. And if he does it again, I would not like that, I guess, is the way I would put it nicely.
Sometimes you aren't always in control of your nightmare either. You know what I mean? So it's not always at the fault of the team. I think what you're saying is there could be a situation where there just isn't anyone good for the Vikings to select because the way the draft plays out and who they have on their board, and then 7 rounds go by, and then you look back and you say, "Oh crap, we didn't add any depth or talent to the offensive line." So,
yep.
I think some of this may be out of the Vikings' hands as well, and they may be forced into a situation where one of our nightmares actually pans out. I don't know. What about you, Adam? I mean, there's been some talk about BPA, not BPA, selecting for need. That's kind of your soapbox. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the worst-case scenario here would be that Rick Spielman decides to sell what remains of the farm after he's already down a first-round pick to move up and lose almost an entire generation of draft picks in exchange for one good player, hopefully good player. And that's not to say that the player that they invested in, that they traded up for, would be poor investment, but just from a quantity standpoint, we're already down that first round pick, and if he tries to swing some blockbuster trade that moves us up or acquires talent from another team, and we see the quantity of draft picks go down drastically, whether it be this year or next year, and we lose out on that quantity, I think that's my worst case scenario for this year, is that we walk away from this with one top tier player, but then 3 7th round picks or something because we decided to trade up. I think trading up significantly would be a major mistake if we decided to throw all of our eggs in one player's basket.
So what do you guys think? That's a good point, Adam, because some of our Twitter responses that we got kind of involved trading into the first round. So I wanted to ask, what do you guys think the chances are that actually happens? I mean, obviously it's been a bummer this season not having a first round pick, and I find even myself being a little less interested in the draft. But there's also been a couple times where I've thought to myself, we are talking about Trader Rick here. He's notorious for getting into the back end of the first round. It's not.
Patterson, Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, right. It's not like
right. There's a precedent that's been set. So, do you guys think that's a possibility this year? And what do you think the draft capital we would have to give up? Let's just say 48 to let's move to 30. What are we looking at giving up, you think, to make that sort of move? Because a lot of the times we've been a little, I think, higher in the second round when we move up into the bottom of the first. This year we're kind of in the middle of the second round. So
I think Rick was maybe a little ahead of the curve in terms of recognizing the value of that 5th-year option that comes with first-round draft picks. But I think teams are catching on to that. And late first-round picks have a lot more value than early second-round picks. So I think the investment to move from 48 all the way up to, mid-20s, late 20s, or 30, like you say, I think that's going to take almost everything that he's got for ammunition in this year's draft class to move up.
I would co-sign that. I would say that you probably need to give up your second, your 73, your 79, and then your fourth round selections as well.
So your second, your 2/3, and your fourth.
And possibly something in 2018.
So you're looking at Adam's nightmare, essentially, in my eyes, of you get one first-round pick and you better hit on that. If you trade all that capital to move up, you absolutely better hit on that pick. And then you've also got a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh, essentially, is what you're looking at if you were to trade into the first round. And for that reason, I don't see it as even a remote possibility whatsoever. I don't see any chance of it happening. I think you kind of have to look at what the Bills did last year, the situation they were in last season when they were staring down a quarterback need, and they didn't have a first-round pick last year because of their deal to get Sammy Watkins, and they ended up having to stand pat, and that was the only choice that they had to try to acquire talent in the second round, because moving up that high to a position they possibly needed, it just wasn't in the cards because it's too much capital to give up in order to move up that high. So I would say that there's absolutely zero chance of Vikings moving first round this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a few, because it's kind of along the same lines of what we've been talking about. Here's a couple tweets from @LightningDustin. He says his nightmare scenario would be trading into the first for anyone not named Lamp. We got another one from Josh Zinger @JZings. We trade up into the first round ... for John Ross. Got another one from @LuckyDragon84. His name's Josh. Trading up into the first round for a QB.
Yeah, that's like an alternate universe. That's not gonna
I don't see that. I don't see the quarterback happening. I don't see John Ross happening, but I honestly wouldn't be that pissed off about getting John Ross because that gets electric. So
yeah, but then I just don't see after he made that trade last year, Spielman made the trade with Miami, he talked about how important those picks were going to be this year. So I can't see him parting ways with his 2/3 and his 2/4 because there's so much value in those rounds. You got Donnell Hunter, you got TJ Clemmings, who could be arguably a good value. You don't usually start a fourth-round tackle 2 years in a row. So
I would say good value. I would co-sign on that.
I don't think he parts ways, and especially not for a quarterback. That's just clickbait. Sorry, Josh. I'm sorry, but
yeah, I mean,
It is. We did ask for nightmare though. We didn't tell them how realistic it had to be.
That is a good nightmare. I'll give him that. That's definitely
That's a great nightmare.
King nightmare. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Drew. I kind of cut you off.
I was just saying, Spielman likes to have his 8, 9, 10 picks in the draft, so I don't see this happening. But I will say that if the Vikings were to trade for one player, I want that player to be Ryan Ramczyk, Wisconsin tackle. He's a top 5 player, and he's super underrated.
So you're good with trading up into the first round for him?
For him, yes. Otherwise, no.
Okay. Another one we got really quick that's then we'll wrap up nightmares is from the tweetist @RichWKRU. He says defense the first 3 picks. So his nightmare is if the Vikings spend their first 3 picks on defense, specifically defensive end, linebacker, and cornerback. What do you guys? So how would you guys feel if our first 3 picks end up being defensive players?
I'd be okay with it if they're the best players.
Me too. I really want a linebacker. Like, specifically, that's my number one need for the Vikings. People don't agree with me on it, but I 100% all hands on deck believe that a coverage linebacker is extremely important to the success of this team moving forward. So if that's included, it's a super important pick that needs to happen. But at the same time, we need an offensive lineman. That's clear, right?
I think
and
go ahead, Austin.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, look at the way free agency fell. You got 2 offensive linemen, you got a running back. You clearly loaded up in free agency for the offense. I wouldn't be shocked to see, especially if the board fell this way with all the talent at cornerback and the different safeties out there. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think it'd be a nightmare to see 3 defenders go, with the second, third, and third picks.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised at all if it plays out that way. So I think he needs
Mike
to.
Zimmer, after all.
I think Rich needs to brace himself because I could totally see our first 3 picks being defensive end, linebacker, and cornerback.
Well, what if they just took like Malik McDowell at 48, and they took, I don't know, let's say Budda Baker at 73, and then at 79 they take Raekwon McMillan from Ohio.
We should all be jumping for joy if that happens.
That's a linebacker, a safety, and a defensive tackle. So you're addressing 2 needs in 3 tech and linebacker, and then you're getting a safety that looks really good next to Harrison Smith. That's not a night in my mind. That's a pretty positive change for the defense, that you still have a hole at right guard with Jeremiah Searle starting there, which is still a problem. That's how I see it.
But you're picking up the scraps then at offensive line, which
right.
I mean, that you're trusting Jeremiah Searle to be your starting right guard. So I mean, if that's your philosophy, that's fine. That's I mean, not saying anything. There's nothing wrong with those 3 picks, but yeah.
If you're going into the draft banking on getting yourself a starter and you don't even have a first-round pick, you're already screwed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, there's nothing wrong
so
with
we're
using
screwed, basically, is what you're saying.
There's nothing wrong with using the draft to get better and deeper at a position of strength. I've written about it a million times, and this is the soapbox I like to get on, but if last year taught us nothing else as Vikings fans, it's that we should use the draft to develop depth behind our starters, because our starters could disappear like that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about dreams now. We spent a good amount of time on nightmares, so let's move over to something a little bit more positive. What's your guys' best case scenario now? So if it plays out exactly how you want it, you know, you'd be bouncing off the walls come Saturday, end of the draft Saturday, if it plays out this way. What is your ideal scenario? We'll start with BJ again this time. He let us off good last time, kind of got the conversation going. So,
for me, I think that the best case scenario is you're either getting Malik McDowell or Dan Feeney at 48. Both guys I don't see falling that far, but in the event that they do, I think that that's a huge win. I also think that if Zach Cunningham from Vanderbilt, I've talked about him a million different times now, I do not see him falling even to the free range, but if he were to get to 48 and the Vikings draft him, that's a home run for me as well. On top of that, so let's say, for example, they get Malik McDowell at 48, then I would like to see him get like a Pat Elflein from Ohio State and say, I don't know, maybe safety, the Obi from UConn. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. That would be a huge win for me if you get your offensive lineman to slot in at right guard, a guy that you think could be a starter. So, you know, maybe that's a Pat Elflein, maybe that's a Dan Feeney, maybe that's a Forrest Lamb. One of those guys, and then on top of that, you get a premier talent in Malik McDowell, or Joe Mixon would also work here, and a safety to play next to Harrison Smith to really shore up that back end and give you one of the most dangerous secondaries in the league. In a guy like Justin Evans, Marcus May, Obi, any of those guys out there, that's a dream scenario for me.
So I've heard McDowell's name thrown around quite a bit as far as some of the feedback we got from Twitter for dream scenarios. How likely is that dream, do you think? McDowell falling to the second round to the Vikings pick.
I don't see how it happens, but there's a reason they're doing work on him, so I would say it's realistic. But I don't think that it just doesn't seem feasible to me. I kind of think that the reason why the Vikings put in work on both Mixon and McDowell was so if they were to slip down into the 36 to 40 range, that they could package their 48th overall pick with, say, one of their 4th-round picks to move up like 6 or 7 slots to grab that guy and end their fall.
At the top of the second round.
Right. That's why I see they're putting in work on those two guys, because I don't see them falling. They're two unbelievable talents that really their character issues are holding them back from being top 15-ish selections.
So are you fine giving up, let's say, because, you know, we did talk about how none of us were really comfortable as far as trading up into the first unless it's, you know, one or two guys that are falling to the bottom. Or let's say, are you fine moving up to the beginning of the second or maybe up 10 spots if it means giving up a 3rd-round pick or a 3rd and a 4th-round pick?
Yeah, I would say that's great. I would say that would be an example of Spielman playing the wheel and deal method very well, in that he traded picks away last season in order to acquire capital for this year when he needs it, and now he can apply it now. And at the same time, you could let's say you package the second round and the fourth round pick to move up 6 slots to get a guy like Malik McDowell. You still have your 2 third-round picks and 1 other fourth-round pick to get to to hit on that quantity aspect that Warwick was talking about before, which I do find very important. But I just don't think the Vikings need to draft 10 players anymore. Their roster is too complete as is that they can get away with drafting only 7 or 8 guys this year. So I would say that that's perfectly fine so long as you're not completely overloading your front half of your draft into 1 pick. Because if you only make 1 pick,
they're going to make the roster though.
Say it again?
You want 7 or 8 guys that are going to make the roster.
Right, I agree with you on that, but don't you think
odds of finding 7 or 8 guys that are going to make the roster are better if you have 10 picks?
But would you rather have 1 very, very good player that's going to be a starter forever, or 2 players that are both going to make the roster and have some sort of impact? I would take, in that, for me, based off of Vikings roster composition right now, I would rather have the 1 very good player over the 2 quality players.
Yeah, if you're able to guarantee that, but you're not going to be able to guarantee that even if you got a top 10 pick.
So what you're saying, Adam, is just strength in numbers.
Hypothetically, you think that they've put enough work into both Mixon and McDowell to know that if they were to bring either of those guys in, that you should expect them to be home run hits.
They better be starters. They better be the guys that you plug and play, and you can't guarantee that, which is, I guess, BJ, that takes me to my dream that we get a redo of the 2015 draft where your first-round pick plays, your second-round pick plays, your fourth-round lineman or your third-round defensive end plays, your offensive tackle plays, your receiver is the team's leading receiver. So your first 5 picks are meaningful contributors, and then you've got a couple guys after that make the roster. So my dream scenario would be transplant 2015 and get that same value in the 2017 draft at positions where these guys, like Adam said, add depth at a position of talent already, but can step in and be contributors right away. Obviously that's a dream. That's not going to happen. Or
that's the question. I mean, it could have happened in 2015, right? I mean, and I think I think that was actually one of the responses that we got on Twitter. Did you guys see the article from NFL.com about the 2015 redraft?
Didn't we get like an A+?
Well, I mean, it was like I don't know that they were giving grades, but it was like they did a draft, played out 2015, knowing what we know now, and I think the 3rd overall pick, so the first non-QB taken was Danielle Hunter. I think the 11th pick was Eric Kendricks, and then the 21st pick was Diggs. I mean, so you can't beat that. I mean, that year was an incredible year. Huh?
So it doesn't even include Trey Waynes either, who could very well prove to be
exactly. And I actually don't think they had him in. I could be wrong, but I actually don't think they had him in the first round.
At this point, he hasn't developed into being worth the first-round pick. But my point being right now is just that could change, and that class could get even stronger this season.
I mean, that's the kind of draft you want. You get the majority of your picks that not only make the roster, but
is that like a feasible dream to have when you don't have?
Well, in 2015 they didn't. I mean, technically we just took the first-round pick out of it.
I guess, but
so I don't see why it couldn't play out again. I think we actually have more draft capital outside of not having the first-round pick.
Yeah, the problem is you just got to hit on.
If I may,
True. Yes.
If I may, I'm going to critique Austin's dream because I think that
you can't critique someone's dream.
What's the guy's name? What's the dude's name? The dream dude. Come on, you guys know what I'm talking about. The psychologist. No.
Oh, like id and your subconscious? Are you talking about that guy?
Never mind. I can't remember the guy's name, but I was just going to say that he can actually critique guys' dreams. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, okay. But I'm critiquing like the philosophy of it because I'm not going to draft guys just to play them.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you draft them and they turn into that. You obviously want your draft picks to play. I'm not saying you're drafting them so they play in year one. It just worked out to be that way, that they all were meaningful contributors.
I mean, you want to you want to find value at the spots in which it's desperately needed. Offensive line, linebacker, defensive line, defensive tackle. Those three specifically kind of need it the most to me. So if you can get a value pick on those three positions, that's my, I guess, dream. It's very vague and very, interpretive, but that's my dream, I guess.
Okay. It's lining up with some of the stuff we got from Twitter. Cole Creeps at Sooner Cole said trade the extra 3 and 4 for another second, grab an OL and Mixon or McDowell. And then I think we got another one from Stephen A. Turner at Stephen A. Turner. We somehow end up with McDowell, Mixon, and interior lineman in the first 3 rounds. So, wow. Those are the names we're hearing a lot. McDowell, Mixon.
That's a good dream. Yep.
And some interior linemen. Obviously, Mixon is quite polarizing. We also got some nightmares that said, we draft Mixon. That's their nightmare. So,
very realistic nightmare, too.
Yeah, I think. Well, some people are going to have to brace themselves for some of these because, they're pretty realistic. It could happen.
I think that the Joe Mixon nightmare isn't it is realistic, but given how many guys the Vikings worked on at the running back spot, I think it's 13 in total that they had engaged with. It could very easily end up being Alvin Kamara or Kareem Hunt. Both guys, I don't like Alvin Kamara. That would be I would be a little bit rattled if they took him at 48. I don't like that pick at all. But Kareem Hunt is another guy that could get hit. If the Vikings got him at 79, that's a good pick too. So I don't think that there's one guaranteed dream or one guaranteed nightmare here because of just the volatility of drafting making your first pick in the second round. That really it makes it very difficult to project anything in the draft as is. And then when your first pick comes in the second round, midway through it, it's difficult to try to pinpoint an actual figurative, realistic dream. It's I'm having difficulty coming up with a scenario that includes names and just a philosophy, right? Actual concrete names. It's difficult to come up with a dream scenario because of where they're sitting in the second round.
Yep.
Adam, did you share a dream scenario, or did you fall asleep and have a dream and then wake up and you're ready to share it?
The dream scenario, I think we should trade back, acquire 37 7th-round picks, and they all play in their first year.
Hmm.
No,
I like that.
I do. I think it's the opposite of what my nightmare scenario is, trading up for someone that ends up not being worth it. My dream scenario would be trading back and acquiring more players that all end up being worth it. That's pretty straightforward and simple, and I know it's kind of a cop-out, but that's the truth. Trade back, the quantity and the quality. There's nothing better than that. 2015 all over again? Sure. Let's do it. But I think, you got to be patient. You can't expect guys to all contribute as rookies in meaningful ways like we saw in 2015. And I'll just acquire good players. That's what the draft is all about. I don't want to see them get hung up on needs. I think this is a far more talented team roster than what we saw when we were going into the 2015 draft. I don't think those playing opportunities are going to be there for a lot of our draft selections this year, unless injuries strike again. But offensive line, anything on defense, anything. And, I wouldn't reach on any running backs, but getting some running back depth is always fun. We lost, if you think about it, we lost 2 superstars on defense last year, pretty much.
Say that again, Adam. We lost 2 what?
2 superstars, or 2 household names anyways, in Adrian Peterson and Teddy Bridgewater last year. This team didn't have an identity, so I would not be shocked to see Rick Spielman try and go out and get a centerpiece for this offense in terms of playmakers, not necessarily on the offensive line. I think we saw that when he tried to go get Alshon Jeffrey during free agency. I think he realizes that this offense doesn't have an identity necessarily beyond Sam Bradford's really quick and accurate passes. And I think he'd like to find a new centerpiece for the offense.
If you were here last week, you'd know what the offensive identity was because we talked about it on the last episode. Plug. Go watch the last episode if you haven't watched it, episode 5. Real quick before we wrap up, BJ, before I forget, you've kind of been heading up monitoring who the Vikings have been interviewing, who they've been bringing in and everything.
Yep.
I think Austin and I talked about this. Do you know, I mean, because I'm not sure if you followed it this closely in the past, what's the correlation between, you know,
it's high.
Players that they actually draft and players that they're bringing in? Do you know for a fact that it's high from previous seasons based on...
Drew and I actually talked about this a couple podcasts ago on the About the Labor podcast. Plug. We talked about the idea of there are going to be scenarios that play out where outlier examples. Mackenzie Alexander is an example of this outlier, right? Where the Vikings didn't bring him in, they didn't meet with him, there's no interviews, no private workouts, nothing. And the Vikings end up taking him in the second round. Harrison Smith is everyone's favorite example of this, but the Vikings at the same time did coach him specifically to Super Bowl, and so that they learned enough about him at that point to not, you know, like throw up the, to not kind of give away, to show their hand, essentially. That's why they didn't bring him in for private workouts. But for the most part, guys like Diggs, Flemings, the 2015 class, Waynes was in there. Point being, all around, Neil Hunter was in there. Point being is that most of the draft picks, especially towards the later rounds, are going to be off of your engagement list. So the fact that the Vikings have so many running backs on there and one that could kind of slot in at each round, it should be very revealing as to what their strategy is. They're basically saying for the running back spot, if we don't get Mixon at 48 or Kamara at 48, we're looking at guys at 73, 79. We're looking at guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round as well. I would expect to see a high correlation again this year. It's generally around 50 to 60% off of your engagement list. I mean, it's 30 different guys, right? I would say like Devon Godchaux from LSU at defensive tackle. I would say that's a guy that I would hone in on the Vikings, you know, making an effort to select him given how much time they've put into a guy that's looking like a 6th or 7th round pick.
So if you were a betting man, you would
I would bet high.
Definitely bet on the Vikings taking a running back this year then, huh?
I would bet very, very high. Yes.
Yeah, and people need to go to the website and check out your guys' is the ATL podcast, but also that your little spreadsheet that's kind of tracking all that. It's getting a lot of great feedback, so and I think it'll be a useful tool on draft day as well. So I think we're gonna wrap up, guys. I think we're at a good time. We're a good stopping point right here. So thanks for sharing your fears and your hopes with me. By the way, it was Sigmund Freud. I went and looked it up. I'm not crazy. I know you guys have heard of Sigmund Freud before.
Yeah, that's bad that we didn't come up with that.
Right. I don't know why I brain farted and I couldn't pull his name, but that I don't even know that it was a joke, but it would have went a lot better had I remembered that. But
I said that.
Did you? I may have had you muted. Just kidding. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. We want you guys to comment on these videos, please. I'd love to get some feedback if you're out there and you made it this far, what you like, what you don't like. We're trying to improve the show. We're working hard at it, trying to make it better. So just drop us a line. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like. And visit VikingsTerritory.com. We're going to have a lot of great content coming up as we get closer to the draft and on draft day. So make sure you visit us at VikingsTerritory.com. Subscribe, like the video, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Adam, this is your show, so
that damn script.
I've got it up.
We're gonna play it real, guys. Deadpan.
Okay. I don't want to look like I'm reading though, because I'm gonna be reading. Can I ad-lib a little?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Mine is
slow
like
down, Austin. Okay, this isn't whose line is it anyway. All right.
No. If I don't get the words right exactly, is what I'm saying.
Yep, that's fine.
Live. That was the thing. Well, you know what I'm talking about, the Hollywood thing.
Take 2.
Are you waiting on me? I thought it was you.
Yeah,
So are we gonna stop?
I'm sorry.
So, before we get to
You guys need any dirt on players? I'm your guy.
good work, Austin.
Thank you.
Nice, everyone. We're moving up.
I like that. I like that.
VT, here we come. All right. Think that was good, Adam?
You skipped my part.
So wait, we have to do it again?
We can. I mean,
Brett!
We don't have to do your part.
Oh, come on. That's the greatest ending.
Wait, hold on. So what's your part?
The Rick Spielman.
It wasn't in your script.
It is in my script.
Not in your revised script.
It is in my revised script. You know what I bet? Click the little ... thing and expand your message.
Or scroll down.
Yeah, he's right.
Oh, man. See, I thought the
That's
script ended there.
That's me.
Oh, the Slack. You didn't. Oh, that's
and
Everybody had sources except for us.
Oh, what happened? Did you mute?
it was anger. I saw a flash of anger there.
Typing something.
I think the script.
What the hell just happened? Adam, are you there?
What is happening? Is he that upset about us not having sources?
It's really pissed.
Jeez.
He's just not going to be in the. He's not going to be in the roundtable anymore. Oh, here you go.
Okay.
What just happened?
Oh, that's the third time that's happened to me.
What happened?
It just goes black, everyone except for me.
This is going about as well as I thought it would.
Right? It's all my fault, man. We had it the first time's always the best time, and I screwed it up.
Good work.
I can't top that, but I did put all my student loans toward a Minneapolis strip club. So, you know, I'm assuming a lot of the players will be hanging out there, and I can catch some dirt on them. So that's what I did.
Wait, so you bought a strip club?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm dedicated to this job. I'm dedicated to this. Right?
Great. That's good to hear. Good work. Austin.
Yeah. Speaking of dirt, I actually DM'd Chris Carter, and he hooked me up as the offensive. I screwed up. Oh, I screwed up. I know I screwed up.
You should have just kept rolling with it.
Oh,
Okay.
I hate it.
All right. So
The
look.
connection's gonna quit before we get this.